Hello and welcome to I'll Knit If I Want To. I'm Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits, and this is a little weekly podcast where I try my best to answer some of your questions. Today I am wearing an odd little pairing because I am in Seattle for Flock this weekend. I'm so excited to be here. I have not had the fortune of going to Flock yet. The first year Flock launched was my 40th birthday, and so I was celebrating with family. And last year my sister was having a baby, so I was celebrating that. So I'm excited to finally make it to Flock. The weather here, I thought I packed well, but I didn't. It's like I don't think I really quite packed enough clothes. And the weather, being the Pacific Northwest, is a little chilly and then a little hot. And so anyways, I just threw on a sweater this morning because I got cold. So I put it over this. They don't really go together, but we're just gonna let it ride. I am wearing my Donnie shirt, which I just made about a week ago, and I love it. I can't wait to make another one of these. And this is in fabric from Fabulism, and I really like their bold use of colors. They really don't shy away from doing some interesting color mashups. And over it, I have thrown on my tessellated cardigan because that's what I have here. This cardigan is knit up in Spinster's Daughter, which is this turquoise here. What colorway is that? Love Me Like You Used To, maybe? Or Ranch Romance. It's Ranch Romance. That's what it is. And then I used a fuzzy yarn. This is a Surya alpaca. It's Odang from Farmer's Daughter Fibers. And then some dyed in the wool from Spin Cycle Yarn. So if I stand up, you can see a little bit of color shifting. The light in here is a little funky, but hopefully you can kind of see. So that is what I'm wearing today. I will, of course, link that for you below. Right out the gate, so I do not forget, today's the last day of my birthday sale. So it's my biggest sale of the year. Only happens once a year, obviously. And it ends tonight at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So if you are a newsletter subscriber, make sure you go check your email because that is where you're going to get the biggest discount. Newsletter subscribers get 42% off. It's almost half off of my patterns. So definitely a good time to snag. If you've got a little list going of patterns you'd like to snag, now's a good time to get them. If you are not a newsletter subscriber, emails are not your thing, that's okay. You can still use the public discount, which is DREA30, DREA all caps, DREA, and then the number 3030. And you can use that on my website or on Ravelry. It is for all of my independently published patterns except for Ooey Gooey. Ooey Gooey was just released in July with its own discount, so it's not part of the sale, but everything else is. And yeah, go do some shopping. Go get yourself some patterns. Get ready for fall. It was actually lovely yesterday morning walking around. It was drizzly and chilly, and it felt a little bit like fall, which was pretty delightful. All right. Let's jump into some questions. So, question number 1. I love your knitting patterns and love your style. I also love to sew, and I enjoy seeing how you're combining your knit patterns with your hand-sewn garments. Would you mind sharing some of your favorite sewing patterns? So I loved this question. I was actually just talking to my friend Rachel yesterday about sewing, and this has come up for me a lot. I'm sure I've said it on here before, but I feel very strongly about it, so I'm gonna share it again. I feel the most like myself when I'm wearing things I've made. And it might just be one item, it might be a whole outfit, but there's just something so special about it. We were talking about buying clothing, and sometimes there's the excitement over buying a new piece, a new item of clothing for your wardrobe. For sure. But I feel like that is kind of like flash in the pan. It's like this, ooh, endorphin hit. Yay, I got to get this new thing and I like it and feel good in it or whatever. But compared to knitting or sewing, I feel like that is like this slow release endorphin hit where the joy keeps on coming. And I love that. And I love tapping in to being able to dress in a way that makes you feel like who you are. that's something that I've always found to be just really powerful. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I have a lot of tattoos. As a very shy, generally quiet person, you might not think that as I've sat on here every week for a couple of years chatting to you. But in general, I'm a quiet person. I spend a lot of time alone because of my job, and when I am in public, and I'm sure some of you maybe feel this way too. Sorry, you know me and my leaky left nose there. Sometimes it can feel very empowering to be able to say something about yourself without having to use your mouth or your voice to do that. And that's kind of how I feel about clothing and my tattoos and things like that. So anyways, I loved getting to think a little bit about some of the outfits I like to put together. I've been having a lot of fun with it lately as I've been able to get back to my sewing machine. So I thought this was a fun question to answer. So Donnie's shirt I put on there. I just sewed this last week. I will actually take off my sweater so you can properly see it. So I just made this one. I have had this pattern for a couple years. I probably got it shortly after it was released and had it printed. And then I moved and had a little sewing dry spell. So I finally made it, and I cannot say enough good things about it. I wore it yesterday under a sweatshirt. I would love to wear, I actually wish I had my DRK Everyday pullover here, because I think it's really cute standing the collar up with a sweater over it. It's nice. It kind of does this little push up. I feel like it does really well layered. But I will absolutely be making more of them. The fit is great. I love the length. I'm short-waisted. On somebody who's long-waisted, it would be more cropped, but you don't have to do it cropped. You can do a long version. And obviously you can add length, but I think it hits at a really nice place. It's got a little pocket, which I was very excited about my lining up of the pattern. But yeah, so this one is definitely for me a sew again, for sure. Can't wait to do it again. But my other and most made pattern for sure is the berry pants, which I'm actually also wearing. Why does this chair have to be? I'm sitting in like the hotel room chair, and it's so heavy and awkward to move. Okay, I really wish I might even stand on the chair because I just want you to be able to see. The best part about these pants is there's a dart right here in the cuff, and they have this half, you can see right here on my white leg, really lovely like half moon shape. So this pair I actually cut out, like 2 years ago and started sewing it. This might have been one of the last things I made before we got busy. Sorry, I just looked out the window and there's a man on the roof over there. Just not something you see every day. Sorry, a little distracted. So I had these cut out, and as you could see a little bit, the white side, a little bit sheer. When there's not a window behind me, they're actually not that sheer. But they ended up getting packed up without being finished. All I had to do was put a waistband on and do the hem of the cuffs. And so the other day when I was on my sewing kick, I pulled out my unfinished things, and these were there, and I'm like, this will take me an hour tops to add a waistband and do my cuffs, not even half an hour. And so I decided to do it, and I'm so happy I did. When I was in Portland, Oregon, teaching a couple years ago, I was at a little shop, and they had this really cute half black, half white pair of pants, and I tried them on, and I loved them, but they really didn't fit right. And why buy something that doesn't fit right? So I did not buy them, but I did think to myself, I could make something like that. And the berries are my go-to. They are so comfortable. I flew out in these pants and then wore them all day to walk around town. I'm gonna wear them again today. I can't even tell you how many pairs. I've made them in a gingham that's really cute. I've made them in a hemp cotton that has more structure, so it really shows the lovely shape of the leg. And then I've even made 2 pairs of sweatpants versions where I just use sweatshirting material to make them. So 100% favorite pattern. Sew them all the time. They look great with hand knits. And they're super comfortable. So anyways, those are, I would say, some top definite sew multiple times kind of sewing patterns. I've got quite a few favorites, but I thought I would share a top and a bottom, two of my favorites that I also think pair well with knits. So I will make sure to link those in the show notes for you. And yeah, I've also shared some of my other like handmade outfits on Instagram throughout the years. There's a few dresses that I really love to pair with sweaters and cardigans. I've worn them in photo shoots and things like that. So there you go. Happy sewing, happy knitting, happy handmade wardrobe making. All right, next question. It's funny, I've only had a half a cup of very weak, bad hotel room coffee, but it apparently has done its job because I'm just a little chatty Cathy this morning. All right, question number 2. I have a sweater quantity of some beautiful non-superwash 3-ply Corriedale that is classified as a heavy DK. It comes in at about 200 yards per 100 grams. I want to take advantage of your birthday sale, but I'm struggling to figure out if I should be looking at DK or worsted weight patterns. I'm a novice knitter, and it seems like I'm a loose knitter, as lately I seem to have to drop down a needle size or 2 to make gauge. Any help in directing me what to look for in a pattern would be greatly appreciated. So the biggest clue here for me is that 200 yards per 100 grams. That is pretty classically a worsted weight yarn. A lot of worsted weights come in at that ratio. So they classified it as a heavy DK. So it makes me think I would look at the worsted weight patterns. Now, I haven't seen the yarn, I haven't touched the yarn, I haven't knit with the yarn, so I can't give you like a 100% certainty kind of answer, but that is what I would do. I would be looking at worsted weight patterns. I would also, and look at, when you're looking at the patterns, I always give like worsted weight and I give yards and grams. So that you can kind of see, oh, okay, she used a worsted weight in this pattern. That's also 200 yards per 100 grams. So I think that's a pretty good way to start looking. Another thing you could do, you mentioned you think you're a loose knitter because oftentimes you have to size down a needle size. That can also just be, that's just the comparison of the person who wrote the pattern and their gauge. So you might, with some designers, you might be spot on, some you might be looser, some you might be tighter, because it's all relative to our own hands and the way we knit. But what I would do is I would go ahead and grab a needle size. I mean, today's the last day of the sale, so you're going to have to get busy if you want to go this route. But what I would consider doing is all of my patterns on the pattern page also list the gauge, and the needle size. So you could even do a little swatch with your yarn and see if you're hitting gauge. Would be an option too, so that you can see, okay, do I like this fabric? This is what this pattern's calling for. You know, maybe you want to look at the Weekender. It's one of my most popular worsted weight patterns, and see if your gauge hits with what's listed in the pattern. That would be kind of a good place to start. Okay, I knit a beautiful cardigan for my husband, making up the pattern as I went. How fun. The button band is knit one, purl one, and was knit along with the rest of the sweater. So the button band stitches are vertical. The trouble is he would like to add another buttonhole to the top so that he can cinch it closed further. I'm struggling with how to add a horizontal buttonhole after the fact on a knit one, purl one button band. I've done several practice swatches and they're okay, but the approach feels rather made up every time as opposed to having a clear approach. I know there must be someone with more knitting experience than me that knows better. So Elizabeth Zimmerman talks about a Afterthought buttonhole. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to decide where you want to place your buttonhole, and you're going to cut one stitch, snip it, and then you're going to unravel it, usually the same amount on each side. So maybe you're going to unravel it 2 stitches on this side, and then you're going to take the other end of where you cut and unravel 2 stitches on this side. And then you're going to have, like, let's say if we did that, we would then have those live stitches, and you would put them onto a needle and then bind those stitches off. I think she recommends a sewn bind off, and there you go. You have a buttonhole. So that's the way I would think to do it. I don't know how big of buttons you used. There are some people who will create a buttonhole even just by like stretching out the stitches, and you could even find tutorials for that. because I think you also tidy up, you maybe reinforce around that area, but that would also be an option. But Afterthought buttonhole is the first thing that came into my mind, and I did even find somebody who chatted about it and gave a step-by-step. So I am going to go ahead and add that link for you down below in the description. But that's what I would try, and good luck. Let us know how it goes. Question number 4. I'm knitting your traveler shell, but I want to have long sleeves. I bought the traveler pattern in your pattern sale. Happy birthday, thank you. And it looks like the stitch count is so similar that I could just follow traveler directions. But am I missing something? Anything I should be considering before I just combine your patterns like that? I think it's a fabulous idea. I have not compared, you know what, let me see. I am just curious about the gauge on both of those patterns. I don't know how similar they are. For the traveler shell, whoopsie. For the traveler shell, I used 2 yarns held together. And then for the traveler, I did not. So I am just curious to compare their gauges. So let's take a little peek. I got them both right here. Okay, so the shell, which is what you're working on, is 24 stitches. And the hoodie, which is very slowly loading. Come on, hoodie, you can do it. Hotel Wi-Fi. Of course, that one's taking a while. I wonder if I have this saved. I actually have some of my patterns in my good notes, in my little notebook that I keep. And I have the traveler. Perfect. Is 21. So it is a different gauge by quite a few stitches. So I would take that into account, but I think it's definitely a good starting off point. And I think you could use like the instructions for decreasing. You just might want to tweak how many decreases you do. Maybe you want to do more, maybe you want to do less, depending on how you want that sleeve to look. So I definitely think it would be a great guide to use to get you started. And the nice thing about that stitch pattern is you don't have to have a specific stitch count, like 4 stitches for pattern repeat. So I would go ahead and pick up what feels comfortable for you around the sleeve. You can also look at that gauge and decide what kind of bicep circumference you would like to start with, and compare. Okay, if I just naturally just picked up stitches with what was comfortable, this is where I'm at, this will give me this bicep circumference and I like that. Or, ooh, I'd like a little more or less. And then decide how big you'd like your cuff to be, and yeah, use the traveler as a guide to do some comparisons. It's a pretty forgiving pattern. One thing to really be aware of though is those, for some reason, sleeves love to grow even more than the body of something. Sleeves just like to stretch out, and especially with the traveler stitch pattern. So just be aware of that. You're gonna get growth more than you might expect. You can even do a steam on them, and that'll help loosen up the stitch pattern so you can kind of see where you're at, so that you don't accidentally make them too long. But there you go. And quite a few people have added sleeves to the traveler shell, so you should be very successful. I believe in you. All right, last question already. Okay. I was just curious about your preference for mohair versus Surrey alpaca. I'm hoping to hold one with another yarn for an upcoming project, but I haven't used either one. I've heard mohair can be scratchy, but the one I'm looking at is the Mighty Mo from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and they say it's quite soft, and the colors are fantastic. However, I'm dying to try alpaca, also from FDF. Suggestions. Okay, so I 100% prefer Surrey alpaca. Mohair, I mean, there are people out there that, oh my gosh, they are going to put mohair in everything. They're going to hold it with everything. They love it. They love the halo. It can really elevate a sweater into looking like really classy or romantic. I mean, the halo is just beautiful. So definitely no hate towards mohair. I know people love it. For me, I find it to be squeaky. There's a squeak to it when I knit with it that I don't love tactile wise. I've used it before. I have it in some of my patterns. I have knit with Mighty Mo. As far as mohair goes, it's delightful. If you like mohair, and you might, totally suggest it. For me, alpaca gives me a beautiful halo. I like that it's more matte. It doesn't have as shiny of a finish, which is where I think I feel some of the squeak as mohair. It tends to be more matte, and it has a different kind of fluff. The softness is off the charts. It's really, I just can't say enough good things about it. I love a Surrey alpaca. So that would be my preference. There's also brushed cashmere, which looks quite similar to baby alpaca. If I was going to put them in a range, I would go mohair, baby alpaca, brushed cashmere, where like the mohair is really shiny, kind of glowy, and then down to the cashmere, the ones I've used at least, are the most matte, the most kind of like soft, diffused. I almost want to say dull, but not in a negative way. It's just your matte finish compared to your high gloss. That's what I'm saying. Also delightful, way higher price point. So that's like luxury over here with the brushed cashmere. They tend to be very spendy. One thing I do love about the brushed cashmere, I've only ever used it a couple times, but what I do like about it is I've seen a lot of them that have a merino core instead of a silk core, and I like that. I found it really lovely to knit with. So that's another fun option to explore, but it is going to be more spendy. So my tried and true reach for it every time, oh dang, from Farmer's Data Fibers. I have the brushed Surrey alpacas. They're just delightful, and they definitely have a great one. I like both the original oh dang. It's really versatile. If you want it to be thicker, you can hold multiple strands together. Really beautiful. And then there's also the oh dang DK, which is what I knit Nebula out of, and my broom sweater. Right? Yeah. I had to think about that for a second. And one of my Nebulas uses regular oh dang held with Confluence cotton, but that is neither here nor there. So I forgot to ever put my sweater back on. Just realized. I'll do the preppy look. We can't not have a hand knit in. I'll knit if I want to. Da, 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 da. Boop. There. Okay. So there we go. That is this week's questions. Again, if you're a newsletter subscriber, I sent out a newsletter today. So check your inbox, even if you newly subscribed this week, because then you can take advantage of that bigger discount. And yeah, I hope you have a great weekend. I'm so excited to meet some knitters and to check out Seattle and Flock. I think it's going to be a great time. And I hope to see you back here next week. Have a good one. Bye.